I'm a lawyer by profession and an advocate for human rights, also advocate of the High Court of Uganda. The Foundation for Human Rights Initiative is a human rights advocacy group seeking to promote respect and protection of human rights in this country. The Foundation for Human Rights Initiative is the chair of the Civil and Political Rights Cluster, and as such has been in the forefront of mobilizing and working together collectively with other groups in putting together a stakeholders report, which is already available before the UN working group on UPR. Since my youth days while at the university, I got interested in this field, and since then I've never looked back. It's a challenging area. It requires a lot of dedication, commitment, sacrifice, perseverance, and always, ready to be in the trenches. The Universal Periodic Review is a process through which member states examine the records of other member states in the area of human rights. It's a peer exchange mechanism. It's an opportunity for states to ask relevant questions about issues of human rights protection, promotion, and observance. Because the whole idea is to relate based on shared values. Within the United Nations, the major guiding principles are human rights respect, security, peace, and development. So within that framework, member states are obliged to encourage each other, to support each other, and to monitor each other regarding their practices in the field of human rights. In the run-up to the third periodic review, we have submitted a stakeholders report. And in this report, there are a number of areas that have been covered, mainly freedom of expression, association and assembly, media freedom, and the rights of human rights defenders. The report takes stock of those rights and assesses the extent to which they have been respected or, violated. On the question of freedom of expression, association, and assembly, we recommend liberalization of the space. We recommend review and repeal of restrictive legislation. We recommend a more enabling environment for people to assemble and associate. We recommend a more friendly approach to the enforcement of the standard operating procedures regarding COVID-19, because these were abused and used arbitrarily, of course, to the detriment of people's fundamental rights. Speaking about media freedom, we also talk about the necessity for the Uganda Communications Commission to avoid issuing arbitrary policy directives and also gagging the media. We do recognize that Uganda's media has been liberalized. However, there have been attempts at gagging the media, and there have been instances where there has been physical assault and sometimes even, destruction of property belonging to journalists. In that regard, we call upon the government to restrain itself and its officers from unduly interfering with the work of journalists and allowing them to carry out their activities. We urge government to ensure that there is an operating environment, that the NGO Act is amended to the extent that some of the restrictive provisions are repealed, and we call upon government to facilitate the work of human rights defenders. And that includes, for example, passing the Human Rights Defenders Protection Bill into law. That, I think, would provide the necessary space for them to operate, and also finding ways through which they can financially support the work of human rights defenders, because elsewhere governments do appropriate funding for civil society organizations. Here in Uganda, they are entirely donor dependent, which we think is highly unsustainable. All of these proposals are intended to create a fertile ground for the enjoyment of human rights for the ordinary citizen in Uganda. Of course, citizens' organizations at the moment need to update the findings, because things change overnight. There are many new developments. As we speak today, 2 soldiers were convicted for having participated in the November 2020 killings. That's a positive development. As we speak now, we are aware of restrictions, travel and visa restrictions and financial restrictions that have been imposed on the director or commander of CMI. There are always developments. Therefore, there is need before February 2022 to update these findings. Secondly, we need to speak to these findings. We need to create platforms for the public, for the general population to understand the nature of issues that we intend to advocate before the UN working group on UPR. So we need to continue popularizing and sensitizing the public on our findings. But on the other note, we also need to engage government, because the UPR process is actually a state-led process. It is intended for governments to examine their fellow member states, their human rights record. NGOs come in as stakeholders to enrich the findings of the working group. So it's important to engage with government so that there is proper appreciation and understanding of the position of the NGOs, so that the process is not adversarial.